Hello, good afternoon. I'm Lee Hodges, I'm the Director of Finance and Resources for the Leadership Foundation, and I'm delighted to be able to introduce Tessa Harrison to you. Tessa is the esteemed Registrar of the University of Southampton, and she is also esteemed as a board member for the Leadership Foundation. Tessa's talk is called Leadership and Humility, a Personal Reflection. Please do welcome her to the stage.
It's a pleasure to be, this is quite loud when you stand here and do this. It's a pleasure to be talking to you today. This is very much a personal reflection of the last couple of years in my post as Registrar at the University of Southampton. Just a little bit about me. I've worked in higher education for about 25 years. Not quite sure when that time's gone, I have to say. I've worked in 4 institutions in all mission groups. I'm not sure how many of us there are who have that experience, and I've worked in all 4 corners of England. Mine's been a fairly traditional career path. I started life as a departmental officer, moved on to be a faculty manager, held central registry and teaching quality lead roles, moved on to be an academic registrar, and then became registrar at the University of Southampton. So very, very traditional, very generalist background, very traditional career in higher education. I'll add to that, as Lou mentioned, I'm also a Leadership Foundation board member, but I'm also Vice Chair of the Association of University Administrators, which is the organisation I credit with standing here talking to you today, because without it, I don't think I would have had the career that I've had. So my story goes something like this. I arrived at Southampton as Registrar on the 1st of August 2011. I was incredibly proud, very excited and very frightened. What I walked into was an institution that had just undergone a very brutal, very intense organisational restructuring, something that we're all familiar with, I know. But the day I started was the day that the new structure came into being. I will ask very different questions in the next interview I have to say, about the state of the organisation before I accept any jobs there. Moving on. What I walked into was an institution, this will be familiar to many of you who undertake these sorts of restructurings, but I walked into an institution that was deeply in mourning. There was a lot of anger, huge amounts of frustration, there were lots of broken links, broken relationships, and it was just relentless problem solving and reactive crisis management. So the first year, that first year from August 11, I was in a very highly stressed state, in a new, very complex organisation sort I'd not worked in before, wondering what on earth I'd done. Was this really what being a registrar was like? This isn't what all the registrars I aspired to be seemed to be experiencing. Why was I having this horrible experience? Stacking shelves at Marks and Spencer's started to look like a very attractive proposition, I can tell you. Just a couple of days before I went on my summer holiday in August 2012, my Vice-Chancellor sat me down and said, Tessa, I need to give you some feedback. Oh, you know what that means? So this is immediately before I'm going on holiday, so very little time to think about things. What had happened was that a number of complaints had been made about the perceived mismatch, and probably the real mismatch as well, between the words I was speaking and the actions I was taking. There was a misalignment between what I was saying, things that I believed in, the future I saw for the university, and the way I was behaving. This created confusion, mistrust, and a sense of inconsistency for many of my colleagues. So I received that feedback a couple of days before going on summer holiday. You can imagine what my summer holiday was like. I had feelings of being scared, I was ashamed, I was angry, I was frustrated, I felt betrayed, but I also felt very vulnerable. So not being one of those people who gives up, I threw myself into a period of executive coaching that the university offered. The coaching was a very very intense 6-month period, and very, very intense. Those of you that have had deep executive coaching will empathise with what I'm saying. If it's done properly, it's intense. This was about unearthing my story. It was about exploring my voice, exploring my values. There were lots of inevitable conversations about my relationship with my mother, not unsurprisingly. Lots of long walks, lots of agonising reflection, and lots of personal challenge with an extremely good coach who took me through that journey. Over the last 6 months or so, since the end of that coaching, 4 things came together for me in a sort of perfect alignment, if you like. The first was Beth, I don't know where she is, I can't see her. Beth Pearce at the Leadership Foundation recommended that I read a book, and that book was Sheryl Sandberg's Leaning In. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. Fantastic book, absolutely hit me at the right time. Sandberg talks about fixing the woman, fixing the organisation, and she also talks about not being afraid. And that's a phrase that stayed with me all the way through. What would I do if I wasn't afraid? It's a great thing to have on your shoulders when you're in difficult situations. The second thing was rereading Jim Collins' book, From Good to Great, and re-engaging with the Level 5 leadership piece that he talks about, and the importance of humility, and really thinking about that, really reflecting on what that meant. We were also in the process of refreshing the university strategy, so that gave a really good opportunity for me to actually articulate the narrative for the world-class student experience and operational excellence that I'm trying to bring to pass at Southampton. And I also started to explore and understand with my team of directors the importance of trust, and the importance of trust in building high-performing teams. So it's been an interesting 2.5 years, a long 2.5 years, I can tell you. Management and leadership can be taught. That's the most important thing I've learned, actually. You can learn this stuff. You can definitely learn to be a good leader, but self-awareness is critical. Great feedback is critical. Time to learn is critical. And the courage of others and the courage of oneself are what make the difference. Like most of us, my CV is littered with courses, leadership and management courses, books that I've read, courses I've gone on, conversations I've had. But it took a few courageous people at the university to give meaningful feedback, to hold up a mirror to what they saw that has enabled me to make sense of all those years of leadership and management training and reading. That's enabled me, I think, to create a very compelling narrative about what I want to do and the sort of leader that I want to be. But it took those people coming forward. I have no idea who they are, but it took their courage in coming forward to give some very meaningful feedback. Humility is, without doubt, as I've learned and continue to learn, the most important leadership ingredient. It allows us to ask for help. It empowers others, and without doubt, it's what builds high-performing teams. Humility stops leadership from being lonely. Thank you.